First thing on the agenda is 22-258, review and approve or reject pump station projects. And I'll recognize Assistant Manager Brian Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, Board of Governors, apologize. We've got some items for you to discuss and potentially take action on today. As the District Board of Governors, part of your purview is with our water and sewer ordinance. We do have, from time to time, pump stations are brought to the utility for consideration. There are 5 projects that I'm going to bring before you today for you to look at, ask questions about, and then ultimately give us some direction on how to move forward with those particular projects. They are a mix. There are 4 projects that are what we consider pump stations within their service area, and then there is 1 project that is a pump station which would pump out of its service area into an adjacent service area. So I'll give a little more detail in just a moment there. So, projects that we have, I'm going to start with Town of Waxhaw's town campus. They have, let's see. So just so you can see here, this is the subject property here. Town of Waxhaw owns this property. They did actually purchase this from Union County previously. It's adjacent to Kensington Elementary School. It is at the corner of Kensington Drive and Waxhaw Marvin Road. This particular property is requesting, or the applicant's requesting, a pump station because they were not able to secure an easement from the school property in order to provide a gravity solution. The school actually has a sewer line. It is a private sewer line, so it's not a public sewer line at that point. And the school did not see fit to grant them an easement to make that connection, so gravity is not available for this property at this particular time. So the only way to provide a solution is to pump over the Waxhaw Marvin Road and connect into sewer in this area. That is the only solution for that property at this point in time. Just so you're aware, I'm going to go through some of our rationale for each one of these. So for the town of Waxhaw's pump station, if the board were to consider approving this from a utility-based perspective, again, the gravity solution is unavailable. That is the one challenge that they have. Per your water and sewer ordinance, interim solutions may be allowed if the acquisition of easements is not an option or other off-site improvements cannot be reasonably completed. That is a rationale that certainly the board could use for utility-based approval. If you wish to consider not approving this request from utility-based rationale, it is not an efficient solution. Gravity is actually the best solution for this. There is an easement issue, obviously, but gravity is the best solution. Sure. The pump station solution would result in higher costs.
Commissioner Rushing wants to ask.
Yes, sir.
Any reason that the schools gave that they didn't want to?
We got no reason for that. They did turn down, I believe, another project as well. In this same list of 5, there's another one that was turned down as well for an easement.
In that, is it like a capacity, for example, like Grassy Branch, where the schools may expand and they may need that capacity, or?
So I don't think it's a capacity issue. The only logic I can see is maybe the school has some desire that they think they'll use their property for something else in the future. However, understand that the line could be moved to mitigate any issues with being able to use their property in the future. And we really don't want you building over top of sewer easements anyway. So there's already existing sewer line on the property. That would have to be relocated in order to make the gravity work a little bit better, but it's still a gravity solution. So the only thing I know is that they were consistent. They turned down this project that was a request, and there was another project that I believe got turned down by the school board for an easement. I wasn't given any reason specifically.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
So, yes.
conversation I heard earlier that actually the easement would be in like floodplain, which they
So-
couldn't build in it?
It is close to the floodplain. I will not guarantee that the easement itself will be in the floodplain. Obviously, it's close. Gravity usually runs closer to floodplains in those areas, but I don't want to assure you that it actually will be in the floodplain. In our opinion, from the staff level, this creates a very minimal issue with the school's property, but it's their property. They have to make their own decisions.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So remaining potential reasons for utility-based denial, as I started to say, the pump station would result in higher cost, long-term maintenance as well as costlier treatment options. The master plan is silent on this one. It didn't foresee that this would need to be served by a pump station, so it's silent on this. And the pump station is, while it's intended to be what's called an interim solution, it is likely to be the permanent solution, because the permanent solution is gravity. So those are certainly the rationale that we would suggest if you wish to turn this one down. Do I have any more questions on this one? If not, I'll move to, yes, sir.
Thank you, Brian. And if we may want to have, it may be a good idea for General Counsel to speak to this as well, but you had indicated in your remarks that for this project, and indeed for all of these, there's not contemplated in the current master plan that a pump station would be in the design. That's right?
So there is one that the master plan foresaw a regional pump station, and I'll talk about that.
Right.
It
But not
didn't
a
foresee it
specific-
in that area,
Right.
but for a regional solution, it did contemplate one.
Okay.
And I'll get into more detail on
Okay,
that one.
but not specific pump stations for
That
any
is
of
correct,
these?
yes,
Okay,
sir.
and if I understand from our general counsel correctly, the current ordinance that we have, the language of the current ordinance, basically, if you could just speak to that. Speak to situations where the master plan doesn't contemplate the pump station and the authority that exists in current ordinance.
Yes, so in your current ordinances, 34-337, D2 and D3, those ordinances call for a situation where there are off-site improvements necessary, but they are inconsistent with the current approved master plan. In those instances, if they meet certain contingencies, the district may authorize the construction of interim alternative off-site sewer improvements that vary from the UCPW master water and sewer plan.
The district may authorize.
May, it's
May.
permissive in that you are allowed but not required.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, thank you, and I wanted to give a little more detail about this. This actually is in the 12 Mile Creek service area and would remain in the 12 Mile Creek service area.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Russia.
So in another circumstance, if somebody was denying access, we could even do condemnations. I'm assuming that we can't do condemnations because the school board owns the property?
I would prefer legal counsel answer that question, but we do have powers of condemnation in certain circumstances.
When one public condemner is proposing to condemn another public piece of property, it cannot be condemned if there are plans for or current public or legal languages of proprietary use. So if they are currently using the property for a public purpose or have plans to use it for a public or proprietary purpose, we're not permitted to condemn that property. That must be a consensual transaction.
So not even an easement?
Not any form of condemnation. There may be some discussion between the parties as to whether they really need that portion of land, but the statutory authority to block a condemnation is somewhat broad in that area.
I would think, now, are we going to go by these one by one and then vote one by one?
What I would recommend is that we go through them all, let you see them
Okay.
all, and then come back and you vote individually on each one.
Okay, because I really, like, something like this, I would really rather we reach out to the Board of Ed and try to see if we can't, because this is going to be a future cost to us, and that could be, future monies available to better things.
I will tell you that I've had conversations with their staff. Staff is supportive of the request. They understand how it would work and certainly could have a very minimal impact. Staff doesn't make the decision. Board of Education makes that decision. So if we were to try and approach the Board of Education on this, I think that their staff would certainly be welcome to having us have that discussion again.
Thank you.
Brian, I spoke with Mayor Ron Pappas and their town manager, and they're so jammed up on time, they ask to be able to be allowed to proceed with the pump station because it would require more engineering
To actually do gravity, yes, sir. That's
to
correct.
start.
Because
start
they've
their
not done
project.
any engineering on gravity.
Now, if gravity could be worked out, they said they would be glad to try to do that, but they're sorely in need of space, and they're going to try to build that new town hall in 14 months.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, so moving along to the next project. Heritage at Marvin. So Heritage at Marvin is a residential development. It's 68 lots. It would be in the 6 Mile Creek Basin, and it would remain in the 6 Mile Creek Basin. So this is a pump station just inside the 6 Mile Creek Basin. The project is located, it's not highlighted, but it's actually here. That's at the corner of Newtown and Meadowlark Lane. So that is the location for it. The nearest area for this to pump is actually in this area here. They'd have to pump this way. Gravity actually flows to the south. For your utility-based rationale on this particular project, number one, the gravity solution is not available. It flows this way. There is no way to connect to 12 Mile Creek from there, so a pump station would still be required. Once you gravitied it to a location, you'd have to go through an existing subdivision, which is problematic, in order to continue that gravity flow. So that solution is not available. And per your ordinance, interim solutions may be allowed if the acquisition of easements is not an option or if other off-site improvements cannot be reasonably completed. So that would be for consideration if the board wanted to approve this from a utility-based rationale. You wish to deny the request for a pump station, utility-based rationale. Pump station solution would result in a higher cost, so for maintenance and for treatment. It's not contemplated as a pump station for this, or the master plan does not contemplate providing a pump station in this area. And it's likely that this would not be really an interim solution, it would be a permanent solution. We don't have another way that we would contend that we would serve this. So those would be the reasons we would suggest if you wish to deny this from a utility-based rationale. Are there any questions on this particular project?
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Brian, just for my benefit as well as anybody else that may be wondering, can you define the legend there, whether the red dots, the white dots, and the black dots?
Yeah.
Can you define that?
So green arrows are the actual sewer. Blue lines are water. Red, I believe, are manholes. I believe that's what those are. Make sure I've got the hydrants correctly here. No, hydrants, I'm sorry. Red are hydrants.
Thank you for being uncertain on that.
I'm sorry.
Makes me look good there.
I missed that one. Yep, hydrants. If you see, and this one does not have in there, if you see anything that says PS, that stands for pump station. There are also other ones which would be system valves or control valves. Those are very hard to see, but this, where you see right here, those are system valves or control valves. And then manholes are an actual solid black dot. Those
Thank
are
you very much.
manholes. Yes, sir.
Brian, you said that if you tried to go gravity, you'd have to go through a neighborhood. It looks
Yeah.
like to get on Golden Bell Drive, you'll have the same problem. Where you
Golden
swing
Bell.
around, is that, where would you connect that?
Which one is Golden Bell? I'm missing that one, I'm
Go
sorry.
straight at,
Here?
Right there.
So this is where sewer exists right now. So this is already provided. This is a sewer line. This would have to pump across and connect to this to be able to actually continue that flow. So these properties here are properties that actually flow to the south. They would have to pump across and connect.
But I'm saying you'd still have to go through a neighborhood to get to that.
You would, but this is a public line, so we do have sewer easements in those areas, so we likely could obtain that because we do have easements since that's a public sewer line. But you do have to make a connection into the subdivision. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. Next one is Oakwood Development. So Oakwood Development is actually at the corner of Unionville, Indian Trail Road, and Oakwood Lane. For those of you who are not familiar with that, Oakwood Lane actually leads to the town of Indian Trails Park. You can't, it's all down here, very down at the bottom. That is Indian Trails Park. So this road actually leads into that park. You've got the expressway here very close, Seacrest Shortcut Road, as well as Unionville Indian Trail. The parcel in question is here on Oakwood Lane, so it actually bounds a portion of Oakwood as well as Unionville Indian Trail Road. It is a mixed project. It does actually have commercial buildings as well as 184 single-family lots. It is within the Crooked Creek Basin and would stay within the Crooked Creek Basin. So the pump, it's not a pump over, it's a pump station inside the Crooked Creek Basin. This particular one is a little bit unique, and I'll get into the rationale for this one. What you have here is an existing pump station. So the existing pump station serves this development here. This particular property would take this pump station offline. Pump station would likely be located somewhere in the lower area, and so it would continue to serve this neighborhood. The pump station would just be relocated. That's a little bit of a unique circumstance. We call that a net zero. Whenever you take one pump station off the line and you replace it with a newer pump station, we call that a net zero. So, yes, sir.
And the developer's paying for that cost?
That's correct, yes, sir. So let me give you the rationale that we've got is for the board to potentially consider. If you were to consider a utility-based rationale to approve this request, first, the pump station would replace an existing pump station with a newer pump station, resulting in no net increase in the number of pump stations within the system. Gravity is currently not available on this site. So as I've indicated before, per your ordinance, interim solutions can be allowed if the acquisition of easements is not an option or other off-site improvements cannot be reasonably completed. The other particular issue with this is you're not technically increasing the number of pump stations. So that's another reason for that. The master plan is silent on this. It does not actually give an ultimate solution for this. The reasons for rationale, if you were to deny this request on a utility basis, is the pump station would result in higher costs for maintenance and for operation. The master plan is silent. It does not give a permanent solution for this. And as I indicated before, that is likely to be the permanent solution. It's not really an interim solution. This pump station has been there for quite some time. No other solution is currently in the mix for a permanent solution for that.
Is there capacity in that Crooked Creek plant?
There is at this time, yes, sir.
Okay, so there's, this isn't part of the permitted and pending numbers, right?
It is not. It would have to move through the process just like every other project. We cannot guarantee capacity. They have to go through the engineering plan review process. Once they've gone through that process, if the board were to say you support a pump station, at that point we submit a permit to the state in our name for the flow, and that's when capacity can be allocated.
Well, I may be confused then because the ancillary projects around the hospital, we've said there's no capacity for that. Doesn't that go into the same
No,
plant?
I think what we've told, I don't know why it's doing what it's doing. So I think what we've told the hospital is that they've not submitted plans for that. So with the number of plans that are in the pipeline, it is likely there will not be any capacity by the time they submit plans and go through the process. This project has submitted a sketch plan.
So they're in
We're
the
counted
pipeline.
in the total, but it's not counted as capacity. This is the running total of projects that are in the hopper, so to speak.
Okay.
So the hospital, if they decided they wanted to submit, they could. And if they were very good at their engineering design, they might be able to get to the finish line before anyone else. But in understanding their timeline, we've indicated that we're not certain there'd be capacity available when they're ready.
Brian, can I ask a question, please? I assume this will be a larger pump station that has to be built?
It would have to accommodate the flows, yes, sir.
Will the lines currently in place facilitate the increase?
The current lines can handle the additional flow.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Close that one because it keeps doing crazy stuff. I'm not sure why it's doing. All right. All right, I lost my other one, so hold on. I did that. Next one is, let's see, we've done, I believe it is Sawmill Run. Pull Sawmill Run up for you. I don't know what this, all right, guys, I'm not sure what's going on. Someone can help me with this. It is not doing well.
Syndrome with mouse.
I can talk about Sawmill Run while Bill is working on that. Sawmill Run is actually a all residential project. That project is intended to be 40 homes. It is actually inside the Popland area. So it's inside the Popland service area. The best solution is a gravity solution, but that actually flows out of Popland into Crooked Creek. That's the best solution from a gravity perspective. However, this is this project I mentioned earlier. The school board also turned down the easement for this particular project, allowing it to serve by gravity if it could be served by gravity. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. So the school property is here. Sawmill Run property is here. It's on Stallings Road. Just as you're going out of the county, if you're going out towards Mecklenburg County, it's on Stallings Road, not far from the intersection of Stevens Mill Road. It would have required a easement from the schools. This green area is considered the Crooked Creek Basin. This more of a tannish area is the Popland Basin. So in order for this property to be served within the Popland Basin, it has to be pumped. It does not a gravity solution unless it were to flow into Crooked Creek and be approved for an easement by the schools. As I indicated before, the schools did turn down the easement request for that particular project.
Brian, did this ask and the previous ask go to a full board vote, or did it ever make it out of, did it go to the full board for a vote?
It's my understanding it went to the full board. That's my understanding. Now, I don't have the meeting minutes. I can't tell you that it's our understanding from the information provided to us that this was turned down.
Okay.
All right, so talk about the possible utility-based rationale. So if you were to consider approving this, a gravity solution is unavailable. cannot provide an easement for that. So per your water and sewer ordinance, interim solutions can be allowed if the acquisition of easement is not an option or other off-site improvements cannot be reasonably completed. If you were to consider denying this request from a utility-based rationale, it's not an efficient solution. Gravity is actually a better solution. However, it would flow to a different basin. That's to keep in mind.
What's the school's objection?
We did not get information as to what their objection
So
was.
it's not wetlands or?
Did not get anything from them on that. So gravity solution would, as I indicated, move sewer from one basin to another. So just be aware of that. Pump station would result in higher cost for maintenance and long-term operation. The master plan is silent in this area. We didn't contemplate that it would be served by a pump. And then lastly, it's likely that this would not be an interim solution. It would turn into a permanent solution. Any questions on that particular project? Well, those are the 5 projects. I can certainly answer any other questions. We've provided the board with some information on this. We would recommend you consider them individually.
Have we done all
4.
projects?
I'm sorry, which one? Weddington Green, I'm sorry. Don't know why I missed that one. Weddington Green, yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. So Weddington Green. Weddington Green is a residential project. It is a mix as well. It is a mix of commercial as well as residential. I believe it was originally proposed at 180 lots. There is some discussion with the town to reduce the amount and the number of lots as well as some of the square footage for the commercial, but it is still intended to be a mix of commercial and residential. This is inside the town of Weddington, so they're the ones considering a zoning request for this particular piece of property. As you can see, it is actually on the border of the 6 Mile Creek Basin as well as the 12 Mile Creek Basin. The request is to provide a pump and pump over into the 6 Mile Creek Basin and allow that flow to be discharged into the Charlotte system where we pay additional costs for treatment with Charlotte and our contract with Charlotte. This property is located off of Weddington Road as you were coming into the town of Weddington. So, rationale, have questions so far? No? Yes, sir.
You talk about the additional cost, because we pay commercial in 6 Mile, right?
Say that
We
again?
pay commercial in 6
We
Mile.
pay the rate, and I believe they call it an industrial/commercial rate. I believe that's what Charlotte calls that.
But,
Manager, industrial pretreatment rate.
okay, but the point is, that extra cost goes into the general operation of a utility, so therefore, if you live in Indian Trail, you're gonna pay more because of the increased cost, is that correct?
Yeah, so the cost of operating and sending our treatment to 6 Mile is spread amongst our entire operation. It is not individualized to 6 Mile Creek. So we take those costs, we factor it in our total operating budget, that is spread amongst all ratepayers. That answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, if you were to compare sewer capacity that we have throughout the county, would the capacity that we have contracted with Charlotte through 6 Mile, would it be the most expensive capacity that we have?
It would be my opinion, it is the most expensive capacity.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so talk about some possible rationale. So if you were to consider a utility-based rationale to approve this request, and first and this is where you asked me the question about was it consistent with the master plan. We would consider this to be somewhat consistent with the master plan because the master plan did foresee a regional pump station that would serve this area called the Mundy's Run Basin. So it was anticipated in the master plan a regional pump station would serve this property as well as a number of other properties. interim solutions are allowed as part of that consideration. So that's why we would say it's somewhat consistent, because that was shown in our master plan as an ultimate permanent solution for that. Now, also, gravity is not available at this piece of property. As with all of them, there is no gravity solution. Even if you are to flow to 6 Mile, it's not a gravity solution to 6 Mile. It's still a pump. So whether they're pumping to 12 Mile or they're pumping to 6 Mile, it's still a pump solution. That's what they have. And as I indicated before, your water and sewer ordinance allows for interim solutions that can be that unless you have easements or that are not an option, or other off-site improvements cannot be reasonably made. So those would be reasons you could consider approving this if you wish to.
But in the master plan, the pump station was anticipated going to 12 Mile and not 6 Mile.
That is
right?
correct, yes, sir. It was intended to stay within the basin, that is correct. So utility-based rationale for not considering not to approve this. The pump station result in higher cost for treatment as well as for long-term maintenance. The impacts of this are have a greater cost because of our contractual arrangements with Charlotte. We would now be paying a higher treatment cost for this particular project. We're pumping over the ridge, sending it to Charlotte, so we'd have a higher treatment cost. So that is obviously a negative. And the pump station, honestly, is likely not to be just an interim solution, because the original plan for the Mondays run, a lot of the property that's in that area is starting to consider for development without water and sewer. So it would make it extremely difficult for that regional pump station to be affordable at this point in time. So it's our opinion that that's likely to be the permanent solution. So, yes, sir.
Commissioner Rushing.
I see water lines, but I don't see sewer lines at all in that area. So there is no sewer in any of this area that we're looking at here? Or?
There is not. The only sewer that's really available is you can see it right here. This does not show exactly where you would pump this to, and I don't want to tell you it's going to pump to that location or somewhere else. It would have to pump across the ridge and then connect to the system within 6 Mile. I'm not going to tell you that's the location. I don't have that information. But as you can see, there isn't really a sewer connection in this area on the 12 Mile. The nearest sewer is in this area here. That's the nearest. And that's one of the reasons why there was a Mondays run regional solution, because you'd have to pump a lot to be able to get to that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
One other item I'd like to, I don't think has been covered relative to this particular item, but using capacity that may be available in the 6 Mile Creek Basin for a project in the 12 Mile Creek Basin takes capacity away from the county in terms of being able to manage the 12 Mile Creek waste treatment plant and put effluent or use the force main at Tarkiln. So while that plant was under construction, we were flowing upwards of 1 MGD a day through that force main, the Tarkiln force main. And that force main is what I call the safety valve for the 12 Mile Creek plant. And if we relinquish a sufficient amount of capacity in the 6 Mile Creek Basin, we may not have that available as the safety valve for that plant. So I'm not an engineer, but I know we were using it for that purpose. And that line is being repaired right now and getting ready to be put back in service. I would I would hate to find out one day that we don't have sufficient capacity left in that contract to even flow our overage from 12 Mile Creek up to McAlpine Creek for treatment.
Commissioner Rushing.
Also, last February, well, not just this past, but the February before, you said we were 100, some days maybe even possibly over 100% at 12 Mile Creek?
We were never technically over 100%.
Right.
But we were very close when we had the heavy rain events.
So if we have more heavy rain events, that's what you're talking about, I think, Mr. Manager?
Yes,
is that-
he's talking about being able to use that diversion, and we use
Right.
that as our emergency sort of safety net to be able to flow from 12 Mile into 6 Mile.
Which could affect the projects that have already been approved.
It's
Because
certainly
we put a
possible.
moratorium on because of that. You know, we were bumping up against 100%. And then if we had to do that again, that could definitely affect current projects in line.
To your point about diversion, Commissioner Rushing, when we were under construction in the 2018, 2019 timeframe, we were diverting regular flow from 12 Mile through that Tarkiln force main during the construction process. That's how they manage the flow and the capacity of the plant during that period of time. If we enter another phase of expansion in the near term at 12 Mile Creek, we're likely to need to divert some of that flow while they work on those treatment basins.
Thank you.
That's all the information I have for you at this time. Happy to answer any questions or whatever the board's pleasure is.
I'm sorry, which other, you said another one was in 6 Mile?
The other one that was in 6 Mile is the Heritage at Marvin.
Okay,
That's, I believe, 40 lots, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
No, it might be 68. It's a smaller residential project, but that's completely within the 6 Mile basin.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes,
believe General Counsel has.
I was getting ready to. I'm going to make a motion that we go into closed session to receive legal advice from our attorney pursuant to 138-8-3-11. All in favor? Aye. We have adjourned out of closed session, and we are now back in open session.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Vice Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the start of the presentation, I invited Assistant Manager Brian Matthews and our General Counsel to address the question for these 5 projects that are before us today to be decided. Are all 5 consistent or inconsistent with our water and sewer master plan? Mr. Matthews, could you speak first to that generally, and then since we left off with Weddington Green,
Yes, sir.
speak to Weddington Green specifically on that question?
Thank you, sir, and I appreciate the opportunity to give some clarification. So all 5 projects are inconsistent with our master plan, and I do want to reiterate that. All 5 are inconsistent with our master plan.
And indeed, they wouldn't be before us today if they were not inconsistent.
That is
right?
correct. And
Okay.
and to clarify specifically on Weddington Green, the issue here is that the interim solution is not anticipated to be the permanent solution, so therefore it is not consistent with the master plan. As well, the master plan contemplated that the flow would stay within 12 Mile Creek, would not be discharged into 6 Mile Creek. So for that reason, this particular project is inconsistent with the master plan.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Rushing.
Brian, how many of these projects, again, are looking for, the best solution would be gravity, but they're easement issues, not issues of,
So there is, Town of Waxhaw has an easement issue. Gravity is the better solution for that. The other one that has that is also, I'm sorry, let me get.
Heritage?
I'm sorry,
Heritage.
I believe the Heritage one is also that.
And Sawmill Run?
And Sawmill is the one where if you were to provide a gravity solution, it actually flows out of the basin and into an adjacent basin. So the gravity solution for Sawmill is going through school property, but that actually goes from the Popland service area into the Crooked Creek service area. It's still a gravity flow, but it goes from one basin to another. To stay within the basin, it has to pump.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
those are the 3.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that based upon a utility-based rationale, including without limitation such rationale presented in this meeting and any board discussion, that the district deny authorization of the proposed interim alternative off-site sewer improvements for the town of Waxhaw, Heritage at Marvin, Oakwood, Sawmill Run, and Weddington Green.
Commissioner
developments.
Rushing, we're going to vote on each one of these items separately. I've been advised by council to do it that way.
Is that correct, Ms.?
If you choose to bundle them, you are free to bundle them together in one motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You can also split them out.
In accordance with Union County Code, including without limitations, Section 34-337D of the code.
Commissioner, would you repeat your list, please?
Yes. The town of Waxhaw Town Campus, Hall Campus, Heritage at Marvin, Oakwood Development, Sawmill Run, and I say Waxhaw Campus already, and Weddington Green.
Okay, we've got a motion.
Miss,
Counselor.
I didn't know I got a question. You can, commissioners, divide a complex motion into separate paragraphs and consider each and every one of them. And that motion made is not a debatable motion.
But we need to handle this motion first. Okay. All in favor?
can we have a discussion?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be voting against this motion merely because I think it makes more sense to vote on these matters individually. These are individual projects that each have their merits and demerits, And I think thoughtful attention to each of them individually is what's called for. So I will be voting no on Commissioner Rushing's motion, only because I am in favor of dividing this into separate motions.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason I see putting them all together is, again, we have two projects where just some communication, maybe with the schools to avoid the issue could be had. The other project that also could go gravity fed, it's just based on a same issue, is an easement issue. And then finally, the other project was completely out of the whole basin. So, again, if that's the desire, I don't know that any of these should be given special treatment over the others. They each have their own reasons for denial. But yeah, to each his own.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not special treatment to my mind. It's simply considering these individually because they each have very different merits and demerits. For instance, on the Sawmill Run item, you're talking about not just a pump station, but you're talking about an out-of-basin solution were it to be a gravity line. And that's, so these all, differ in some regard to others, and I just think it makes sense to vote on them individually.
Okay, if no further discussion, I'm going to call the vote on the motion to deny all of these. All in favor of denying them all?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start back with the Town of Waxhaw Town Hall campus. I move, based upon utility-based rationale, including without limitation, such rationale presented in this meeting and in any board discussion, that the district approve authorization of the proposed interim alternative off-site sewer improvement for the Town of Waxhaw Town Hall campus development in accordance with Union County Code, including without limitations, Section 34-337D of the code. Any discussion? Commissioner Rushing.
Ryan, what's the approximate cost for this pump station, and who will be incurring that
The
cost?
Waxhaw pump station?
Yes.
It's my understanding, they estimate that at roughly $200,000. That's my understanding.
And then who's going to be paying that bill?
That would be the town of Waxhaw would have to pay those costs.
So it won't be coming out of enterprise fund monies?
All pump stations are paid for by the developer or property owner when they are in this manner, unless the county has developed its own pump station, like, say, Poplin is our pump station. We pay to replace that. We pay to own it and maintain it. But any other solutions are paid for by the developer or property owner.
So the taxpayers of Waxhaw would be paying for the original pump station, and then we would pay for any replacement?
It would come out of the town's their tax coffers.
Okay. If the pump station was not included, does that present a cost savings or a cost?
In my opinion, it's obviously less cost for the town. That's $200,000 that they don't have to pay for the pump station. They still have to pay for the gravity connection and the design for it, but that is a less expensive solution.
So we could deny this today, have a conversation with the Board of Education to see if they are willing to change their minds because of the cost of this to the taxpayers of Waxhaw and eventually the cost to us as a system.
We certainly could have that conversation if directed by the
And
board.
any of
absolutely.
these can be brought back up at a later time, correct?
I don't know the Board of Education's rules, but we certainly would be happy to bring this
I
to their
mean,
attention.
we could bring these projects up at a later time.
I believe you
If the
can,
school
yes,
board
sir.
failed to do that.
I believe you can.
I'll be voting against the motion. Thank you.
Commissioner Helms.
The 200,000's for the pump station. What about the lines to get it around the schools?
You talking about if they did a gravity solution, or are you talking about for the pump station?
If you're gonna pump it, you still gotta pump the lines.
I can't say that includes the lines or just the pump. That was just an estimate given to us by by their folks. We don't do the costing for that, so that information was provided to us by their engineer. I can't promise you that it doesn't include the lines. We don't know that at this point.
Even if we'd approve this, we could still go back to the schools and demonstrate the need for being fiscally responsible and going for a gravity solution, right?
Yeah, I think what my understanding is the town of Waxhaw is attempting to bid this project out. And they've been going along the understanding that their only solution was a pump station because they were turned down for an easement by the schools. In my opinion, that they could still potentially go out to bid. They couldn't include an alternate if they wanted to. It's up to them how they want to structure that.
I want to add this to the discussion. In a discussion with the mayor of Waxhaw and the town manager this morning, they had discussed this with the school maintenance and facilities staff, and they were supportive of it.
Yes.
But it failed by the by the UCPS Board of Education. They want this thing to go ahead. They're ready to build their town hall. They have a builder, they think, well, they're ready to go to bid, but they're going to require 14-month completion. They said, please, 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 don't stop their town hall. They can afford the $200,000. This is an ask that we shouldn't be having to ask a UCPS. We should work together on simple things like this. So I'm gonna call the question, or call the vote. All in favor of allowing Town of Waxhaw Town Hall campus to proceed with the pump station, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Okay. It passed 4-1. And the Heritage at Marvin Development, any discussion or anybody with a burning desire to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move based on utility-based rationale, including without limitation such rationale presented in this meeting and any board discussion, that the district deny authorization of the proposed interim alternative off-site sewer improvements for the Heritage at Marvin development in accordance with the Union County Code, including without limitation section 34337D of the code.
And you're to deny.
Deny.
Any discussion? Call the question then. All in favor of denying the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Oakwood Development. Discussion on Oakwood Development. Commissioner Rushing.
I move that based upon utility-based rationale, including without limitation such rationale presented in this meeting and in any board discussion, that the district deny authorization of the proposed interim alternative off-site sewer improvements for the Oakwood development in accordance with Union County Code, including without limitation section 34-337D of the code.
Any discussion? Commissioner Simpson.
Commissioner Rushing, you was to deny, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I see this a little bit like Waxhaw. We're in a transitional period. That's the whole reason we're here today. I understand it would take a little larger pump station, but it could be done. So I'll be voting against the motion.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that, and you know, again, the concern is that we're bumping up against capacity and what's going to be available there and not. So if we're going to allow a pump station there, that's my concern, is what kind of capacity are we bumping up against at Crooked Creek. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of denying the pump station for Oakwood Development, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 3-2, it fails.
Meaning it's denied.
Denied.
The motion passes.
The motion passes. The pump station is denied. Thank you, Vice Chairman. Okay, on the Sawmill Run development. Discussion.
Now, this is the one that crosses boundaries, right?
Across.
Crosses districts, boundaries.
Let me look just a minute, Commissioner Hill.
Isn't that correct, Brian? That's the one that
The Sawmill
would go,
Run?
yeah, it goes into another,
That is correct. By gravity, it would have to flow into
A different
the
basin.
A
Crooked
different
Creek
basin.
Basin. By pumping, it stays into the 12 mile,
Okay.
but it still requires a pump.
And that likely would be a permanent solution.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the pump, all right.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Commissioner Rushing.
So Brian, what you're saying is the existing Poplar Road pump station that pumps to 12 Mile at this time, which the master plan was calling for that to be pumped to a new Crooked Creek facility at some point in time.
Some point in the future, yes, sir.
So you're not, the permanent solution is not to pump it to 12 Mile Creek. The permanent solution will eventually be that this goes into a Crooked Creek sewer plant.
Under the master plan, it was anticipated that Poplin would come offline at some point in the future.
Right.
That is the ultimate permanent solution.
So this isn't necessarily pumping it over, you're not pumping from straight, you're pumping from a pump station.
You're
to a
pumping
pump
it
station.
into the Poplin pump station is what you're doing, because it doesn't flow by gravity to the Poplin pump station. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, I move that based upon the utility-based rationale, including without limitation, such rationale presented in this meeting and in any board discussion, that the district deny authorization of the proposed interim alternative off-site sewer improvements for the Sawmill Run development in accordance with Union County Code, including without limitation, section 34-337D of the code.
All right, we have a motion, discussion. Commissioner Simpson.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be voting in favor of the motion. However, it appears to me the logical solution is to work with the schools, but since they don't care to do that, then I'll support the motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I agree with that. I think this is something that we need to maybe approach the school board again and just explain to them, the eventual cost is going to be borne by the ratepayers, which include Union County Public Schools. Any idea on the cost of this pump station? Is it less than? So again, this is a cost that the developer would have to incur originally, but the maintenance and ongoing cost of this pump station will cost Union County Public Schools just as much as everybody else because of the replacement and maintenance. How often do we have to monitor those pump stations?
They're requiring the SCADs on these, so they are
SCADA
monitored
systems, we
by.
monitor them routinely. If you're asking how long their life cycle is, they can go 20, 30 years. It all really depends on heavy usage, whether or not you have any other issues that might cause the pump to go out. But typically, you can get 20 years out of them.
On-site verification that the pump station's going, how many times a week?
John, I don't really have an idea at this point. I can get you that information, but I don't
Because we've
know.
heard as much as like maybe once a week, once a day, once a month.
I really don't know the answer, and I'd hate to give you one because I'd be wrong.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, on the motion to deny Sawmill Run, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, Sawmill Run is denied. Okay, on the matter of Weddington Green, Commissioner Helms.
yes, I'd like to make a motion that I move based on utility-based rationale, including without limitation, such rationale presented in this meeting and any board discussion, that the district deny authorization of the proposed interim alternative off-site sewer improvements for the Weddington Green development in accordance with the Union County Code, including without limitation, section 337D of the code.
Discussion. Commissioner, Vice Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be voting in favor of this motion to deny. I think the case is very strong to deny. Not only is this a pump station that, again, is incongruous with the master plan, but it's a pump over between basins. And not only a pump over between basins, but it utilizes wastewater capacity that we have obtained through our contract with Charlotte that is among the most expensive capacity that we have. Last but not least, that capacity that's on contract with us through Charlotte is there in part to satisfy diversions when we need to make diversions from 12 Mile. It's not just another source of capacity to use for future development. We need to be thoughtful about how that capacity is used. So this is a very strong yes on denying this project.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call the question on to deny Weddington Green their pump station authority. All in favor of denying?
Aye.
All opposed? None. So it's denied. Okay, I believe at this time we can adjourn the special meeting of the Board of Governors. Do we need to take 5 minutes, or we will go right in?
5 would be good.
Sir?
5 will be good.
5 minutes, and we'll come back and go into general special meeting. All in favor of adjourning the Board of Governors? Aye.
Aye.